In the previous lesson, we talked about how the use of stop loss orders can limit the risk a trader takes on any trade. But using stop loss orders by itself isn't going to fully allow you to control how much you would lose. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to use proper position sizing in order to control how much you could potentially lose on any given trade. So without further ado, let's get into it. Position sizing refers to the process of determining how many shares you will buy or sell of any stock in any given trade. And this is such a crucial aspect of risk management because it allows you to control how much money you could potentially lose on a trade if your stop loss order were to get triggered. Now, there are two ways to control how much money you could lose on any trade. The first is restricting losses by a fixed dollar amount on every trade. For example, a trader might decide to risk $100 on every trade. So every trade they take, the maximum they would lose is $100 if the price were to hit their stop loss. Now, the benefit to doing it this way is that it's a more uniform approach that provides more consistency in your trading. If you are always risking $100, then you know every loss is going to be $100. Since the amount that you lose every single time is more consistent, it'll be much easier to keep track of things and how much you need to gain in order to be profitable. So let me show you how to calculate your position size using a fixed dollar amount every single time. The first question you need to ask yourself is how much money are you willing to lose on any trade? So let's say that on any trade you take, you do not want to lose more than $100. The next step is figuring out your anticipated entry price. So let's say that you do some analysis and you decide that you want to take a long position on a stock and buy it at $10. After that, you need to figure out what your anticipated stop price will be. The stop is going to be where you would exit the trade at a loss in case your analysis is incorrect. So we'll say that we determine the stop loss is going to be at $9.75. Now, once you have these three figures, you're going to have to do a little bit of math to figure out how many shares you need to purchase in order to lose no more than $100. So here is the formula to do that. You would first subtract your planned entry price from your planned stop price. So in this instance, you would take $10, then subtract $9.75, and this gives you 25 cents. This 25 cents would be the amount you are risking for every single share that you are purchasing. You would then take the maximum amount that you are willing to risk, which is $100, divide it by the amount you are risking per share, which is 25 cents, and this gives you a total of $400. So if the price comes to your planned entry at $10, you would then take the position for 400 shares so that the maximum you would lose is $100 as long as you exit at the stop price of $9.75. Let's do one more. First, you need to determine how much you want to risk, and we'll say we want to risk $100 again. So we do some analysis and decide we want to buy a stock at $4. Then we determine a good stop loss placement would be $2. The next step would be to take our planned entry price and subtract it from our stop loss. So we take $4, subtract it by $2, and this gives us $2. So if we wanted to risk $100, we would take 100, divide it by 2, and this gives us 50. All right. So if the price comes to our planned entry of $4, we would take the position with 50 shares so that the maximum we would lose is $100. Now, let me show you both examples we just did side by side. On trade one, we were only risking 25 cents per share. If we bought at $10 and sold at $9.75, then that would be a 2.5% drop from our entry to our stop loss. But the second trade, we were risking $2 per share. If we bought at $4 and sold at $2, then that would be a 50% drop in value from our entry to our stop. But if you are using the position size calculations to risk a fixed dollar amount, then you are actually risking the same amount on both trades. So it wouldn't really matter where you place your stop loss or how wide you place it. As long as you do your position size calculations correctly, both of these trades wouldn't be more or less risky than the other. Now, a big mistake that I see a lot of inexperienced traders make is taking a fixed share size on every trade, such as taking 1,000 shares on every trade no matter what. But the big problem to doing this is that every stock has a different volatility range. So because of this, you would be risking a random amount of money every time depending on where you place your stop. So going back to our two examples here, if you were to buy 1,000 shares on trade number 1, risking 25 cents per share, then that would create a $250 loss. Then on trade 2, if you were to buy 1,000 shares as well, risking $2 per share, then that would create a $2,000 loss. So as you can see, by using a fixed share size on every trade, you aren't really going to stay consistent with how your losses stack up, which may put you at a disadvantage. Now, the second way you can control losses is by risking a certain percentage of your account balance. For example, if a trader has a $5,000 account, they may decide to risk 1% of it on every trade. Now, the benefit to doing it this way is that it allows you to adjust the amount you risk as your account grows or shrinks. So let's do the math to figure out your position sizing doing it this way. Let's say that you have a total of $5,000 in your trading account, and now you need to decide what percentage of that you want to risk for every trade. Generally, you don't want to risk more than 1 to 2% of your account, so we'll go with 1%. Next, you need to figure out what 1% of $5,000 is. So 1% of $5,000 would be $50, and then you need to do the same calculation we just talked about when using a fixed dollar amount. So if you want to risk $50, you would take your entry price and subtract it by your stop price. And we'll say that we're planning to buy at $4 with a planned stop at 2, so 4 minus 2 is $2. And then we'll take $50 and divide it by $2, which gives us 25. So from this calculation, we would buy 25 shares at $4 to risk no more than 1% of our account as long as we stop out at $2. Now let's imagine a trader enters into this exact trade. They have a $5,000 account. They want to risk 1% to make 2%, or in other words, they're risking $50 to make $100. And when they close out the trade, the result is a win, giving them $100. Now, their account balance is $5,100. So on trade number 2, they calculate 1% of $5,100, which would be $51. So on the next trade, they would risk $51 to make $102. And they keep adjusting this based on their total account balance, which would be an effective way to gradually scale an account. So this method adds a little bit more complexity in there because you have to figure out what 1% of your total account balance is before every trade. But it can be worth it because you don't want to overexpose your trading account to any single trade. A good rule of thumb is that you never lose more than 1 to 2% of your total account balance on any given trade, and let me show you why. Let's imagine that there's two traders, Jack and Jill, and they each have $1,000 in their trading account. Both traders use a strategy that produces a 50% win rate, but over the course of the next 8 trades, the outcomes are lose-lose, lose-lose, win-win, win-win. Jack decided to risk 25% of his initial account balance on every trade. So with the recent sequence of trades, Jack has no more money left after the first 4 trades. But Jill decided to risk 1% of her initial account balance on every single trade. So for her, the outcome was more positive. Even though she had a string of losses with the first 4 trades, she was able to make it back and be profitable because she kept her losses to a minimum relative to her account balance. So as you can see, by risking too much, it can be easier to blow up your account or dig yourself into a large hole that's really hard to get out of. And this is why it's important to be aware of how much you can lose on any given trade and make sure that that amount isn't large enough to jeopardize your account. Okay, so in summary, the use of stop losses combined with position size calculations is crucial to effectively managing losses, but as you've seen, this all takes very careful planning even before entering into the trade. You have to know exactly where you're going to enter, where you're going to place your stop loss, and how much money you are willing to risk. Because if you know all of this ahead of time, then you're going to be able to make well-calculated decisions that are only going to increase your chances of being successful. One of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of novice traders make is entering into trades with no calculated plan at all. They'll enter into a trade at some random price on the fly with some random amount of shares and then decide where they will exit only after they are in a position. And this is a very bad thing because it leaves the potential risk of losing large sums of money wide open, and it will only introduce more randomness in your overall statistics that you won't really have much control over. So by having a well-calculated plan before ever entering into the trade, you'll be able to have more control that would allow you to consistently place the odds in your favor. I hope you all learned something, and I'd like to thank you so much for watching.